They're two happy women bringing you inspiring stories, politics, pop culture, and lifestyle hacks, all with an eye to making our communities and our country a better place to live. It's the Happy Women Podcast with your hosts, Jen Horn and Katie Gorka.
Thanks for joining us and welcome to another episode of the Happy Women Podcast. I'm Jennifer Horn.
And I'm Katie Gorka.
And we have lots to talk about today. We still have fires and all of the political drama that ensues even after the fires are starting to at least get contained, which is a good news in California. And of course, what I'm most excited about, the inauguration of President Trump, which is coming up in less than a week from the day that we record this. And Katie is going to be there. So we have to get an update on her preparations, what it's going to be like, what she's going to wear, you know, all the good stuff, the stuff that really matters, the hard-hitting news, like what is she wearing? Katie, it's great to see you again for another episode. And there's just been a lot going on. I feel like the start to this new year, do you feel, maybe you feel it too? You know, we started with the terrorist attack. I'm in California, so I've been in wildfire central over here. And sadly, some of our colleagues at Salem Radio have lost their homes. Many people have lost their homes. So it's just a lot going on. But there is optimism around President Trump. But I just feel like this is a year so far of just change. Like not necessarily negativity, just there's change in the air for sure. And I don't know. I'm excited for the first 100 days of Trump because I think there are changes to be coming down the road.
I think I agree with you. I think there are very interesting things happening. I think the fact that, for example, that when Trump won the election back in November, there was none of the expected chaos, violence, demonstrations, whatever that people expected. And in fact, I think, you know, for as much as you see some of the Democrats really digging in and like your governor, who's trying to quote Trump-proof California, I think that there is a very broad sense throughout the Democratic Party that they failed. They went too far in one direction, lost touch with the voters. And now what I find just so interesting and tragic is we are seeing the cost of their failed policies. Yeah. You just have, you know, so many errors in what led to these really tragic wildfires in Los Angeles. And, you know, I just also have to remind you, we had our own mini drama here in Virginia because last Monday when the big snowstorm hit, Richmond lost power. And because of old, poorly maintained equipment, the whole water system backed up. Sewage got into the water, and the capital of Virginia did not have clean water until the following Saturday. So the legislature could not convene. I mean, they convened, but then they all had to go home. Hospitals had to be emptied. People did not have water, did not have clean water, and actually had no water for a number of days.
It's inexcusable. I mean, you just think about the greatness of our country. You think about the greatness, even with the issues of Virginia and California. I know we have the 5th largest economy on the planet, and we live like it's a third world country in many cases. I mean, it's inexcusable. And this is a total failure of leadership. And I guess that's really where we start today. It's how politics really does find its way into everything. And we're seeing now the political fallout in California from the wildfires, just like you're going to see in Virginia with the water contamination, which has also been a story here. There have been a lot of different tales being told on social media as well, and it's hard to know what's really true and what's not. One of the biggest issues is about the fire hydrants being empty. Everybody's got an excuse how these fires are being started. There are a lot of stories out there. So I just thought maybe we could go through some of the stories you may have heard, and I'll shed at least the facts as I know them today, because it is an ever-changing situation. But one of the stories, and I think you said you saw it, was about the 60 fire engines coming in from Oregon that got turned away. You heard that story, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So I dug around because I thought, wow, how crazy is this that 60 fire trucks could be turned away? And we have mutual aid, as many states do during times of disaster. You have mutual aid agreements with In this case, in California, the sheriff's department has it with the National Guard. Different fire organizations can help one another. And so Oregon, Washington, Utah, Idaho, Arizona, and New Mexico all responded to the fires that were happening in California. And there was a story that 60 fire engines from Oregon were stopped and that they were turned away for environmental failures because California has emission standards. And this is true. To drive into California, if you've got a big rig or if you're shipping goods in and out of California, your truck has to adhere to the emission standards set up in California that are much higher than our neighboring states, and really, I think any state in the United States of America. So Cal Fire came out. Oregon Fire came out, said that this story was patently false, that they were not stopped and turned away. Well, it turns out after some digging, Katie, they were indeed stopped. And in fact, in a video, there's video proof from Cal Fire actually bragging about this. So they come into the state. They're stopped not for their emission standards. They're stopped to check their brakes and their safety systems. Each of these trucks that didn't have proper brakes, I guess, up to California standards, had to stop and be sent to this mechanic who's probably got a sweet government contract and probably does some very expensive brake jobs and whatever else these fire trucks needed. And they were bragging about how they were only detaining the trucks for 45 minutes to an hour, at least most of them. Some of them got detained longer, but this was their brag that they were getting these things done so quickly. But Katie, if you're burning to death, if your house is on fire, you don't care if it's 45 minutes or if it's 45 seconds. You want those fire trucks there as soon as possible. And I was thinking about this. They say, well, you want to make sure these trucks are safe. That's the job of the government. I get it. But if they drove here from Oregon, common sense would tell you that their brakes worked far enough to get into the state of California, right? To get well into the state. How would you feel if you saw a fire engine stop at a McDonald's drive-thru because you have to eat and you're hungry before they actually show up at a burning house? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. But yet this is California saying, oh, the reports are patently false that they were stopped for emission standards. Yeah, maybe for emission standards, but they were stopped. They were detained. And whether, again, it was 45 minutes or 5 seconds, it still detained them on their way to do critical work. Just unreal.
So the other story that's been, I mean, there have been so many stories to come out of this that I find just stunning. But what about the story that the Pacific Palisades Reservoir has been sitting empty? Is that true?
Yeah, so that's another one of these stories that it is true and right based in fact that when the firefighters showed up to fight the fires, they were not able to use the fire hydrants. Most of them were empty. So they'd put themselves at risk, hook up their fire hose, and nothing would come out. And so you have everybody in the county, Gavin Newsom putting his hands up saying we need an investigation. This is up to the local authorities. The state reservoirs were filled. Well, in his case, he is telling the truth. The state reservoirs were filled. But he knows exactly what was going on, and that was that the Palisades Reservoir was empty and has been empty since, I think, February or March of last year. It's been undergoing whatever they're calling maintenance, and it's been sitting empty. There were also no backup plans, contingency plans for when the power went out from the working reservoirs. So there was no water pumping to actually get into these fire hydrants. And you also have in these reservoirs, state operated that did have water in them, environmental standards where they could only be filled to a certain level because of the fish and things that inhabit these reservoirs. So again, on the surface, when you hear the lady from the LADWP, Department of Water and Power, who makes $750,000 a year, come out and say there was nothing wrong with the reservoirs, that was patently false. She was lying to the people of Los Angeles and anybody else who was listening to her because there was an issue. This Palisades Reservoir was in maintenance mode. Nobody wants to address that. They also aren't telling you that because of the budget cuts to the fire department 2 weeks before the fires broke out, there was a letter issued by the LA Fire Chief, Chief Crowley, saying that they had to suspend fire hydrant testing because they didn't have the money or the resources to do it. Again, catastrophic failures for all different sorts of reasons that came together in one perfect storm when these fires broke out.
Okay, wait, can we just hit the brakes here for a second? How is it possible that a government employee, this head of the water department, whatever the title is, makes $750,000 a year. That's like twice what the president of the United States makes. How is that even possible?
It's insulting. It's insulting. She makes more than the police chief of Los Angeles. And I was annoyed that the police chief makes over $500,000 a year in Los Angeles. Like this kind of money, when you're making more than the president of the United States is supposed to make, it's absolutely crazy, especially when you consider that a lot of the DWP, these are blue collar workers who are putting in a lot of hours, in many cases going into dangerous situations. And you've got someone at the top making all that money. It's just, it's insane.
Are people not upset about this? I mean, are you hearing much talk about it?
Not with the LADWP woman. She's been kind of floating, but where people are focusing their attention, and I have to tell you, I'm really glad to see it, because as someone who has watched Democrat leadership just tank the state, all of a sudden you're seeing celebrities like even a Kardashian, Khloe Kardashian, calling out the leadership of Mayor Karen Bass, who seems to really be taking it on the chin, and Gavin Newsom, who's also getting a lot of criticism because people now are aware that his legislative session that he's called, this special session that he's called into effect, isn't dealing with the wildfires. It's dealing with President Trump. It's dealing with Trump-proofing the state and trying to come up with $25 million from a state that needs firefighting, fire management, and law enforcement, and putting it into a slush fund so that he can legally challenge everything that Trump is going to do when he gets into office. So Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass right now are under tremendous pressure, so much so that the only way that you can impact Gavin Newsom right now is through public pressure. It's the only thing he responds to because he knows he needs to have public support to go on to run for president, which is his ultimate goal. So what's been really interesting is you have a lot of conservatives who are throwing around the idea of a recall for Gavin Newsom, which, look, I would support a recall of Gavin Newsom because I can't stand Gavin Newsom or his leadership. I just don't think it's the best place where we can put our money and our energy because he's going to be out of office in 2 years. And it will not go through and work in that amount of time, sadly and unfortunately. But if you start waging public information wars against Gavin Newsom, he responds. And already, because of the outcry with this Trump-proofing California situation, he's now getting ready to call a special session all on wildfires. And it's all because of the public. It's not because he just came to his senses. It's because he is getting a lot of negative publicity and press. And he's not the only one. There's been a lot of dramatics going on within the city as well. Karen Bass, who many of you know nationally because she served in Congress for a really long time. I like to remind people she was a student of Fidel Castro. This woman is about as liberal as they come. She knew, and it's being widely reported by the mainstream news media, that has given her a 2-year honeymoon period. I mean, literally, the news media has been all about how wonderful Karen Bass is. But now they're reporting she knew about the wind coming. She knew about the reservoir being open. She knew about all of this before she went on her trip to Ghana for President Biden to watch the swearing in of that president. And so there are a lot of people upset that she would have left the state without pre-deploying the fire department, without kind of planning for a pre-emergency in advance of what they knew was going to be a really catastrophic windstorm. When she came back to town, she and the fire chief were both united in the fact that they were going to be bringing in diversity and inclusivity into the fire department. In fact, they've got major hiring problems at the LA Fire Department, not just over budgetary constraints, but also because they're looking for women exclusively or LGBTQ individuals to serve in the fire department instead of just anyone who can fight a fire. But Karen Bass's DEI hire, LA Fire Chief Kristen Crowley, came out and called Karen Bass out on the floor when she was interviewed by local news last Friday. She was asked if the city had left her behind with these budget cuts, and she answered yes. And then she doubled down once again, saying that these budget cuts significantly damaged the department and put them in a bad situation where they couldn't do emergency testing and they couldn't do hydrant testing. So Karen Bass has to answer now to the media reports that she screwed up with these budget cuts. And she apparently went apoplectic and called Crowley into her office to fire her. But then someone, I don't know who she talked to, whether it was Newsom or someone else, said that the optics on that would be so bad. So she backed off. But now they're having to deal with this very public feud in front of reporters while things are still literally on fire. So people have already collected over 100,000 signatures to encourage Karen Bass to resign. They are so unhappy with her leadership. And this is Democrats and Republicans and so many of those Hollywood celebrities who have lost their house. I don't know if she survives this politically. I mean, stranger things have happened, but I don't know if she gets through this when all is said and done.
And, I just want to say, I think one of the biggest disappointments, let me say this, from both Bass and Newsom is on top of all the failed policies, but their response, just as humans, I find them both so arrogant and unsympathetic and so utterly lacking in humility. Every image
no empathy
I see of Newsom, he's like, the hair and the, just kind of like the smiling, like you don't even feel that he feels the pain of all these people that have lost their houses. And that incredible shot that we played the other day of Karen Bass, I guess she had just come back to the country and a journalist is asking her, what do you have to say? She doesn't even answer. She just doesn't even respond. I think if either one of them responded in an authentic and heartfelt way, I think people would actually be willing to sort of forgive, right? Even if they were willing to apologize, but they're not. They are just so cut off and so arrogant.
And they keep covering for themselves instead of coming out and starting with empathy. We are so sorry for your loss. We are praying for you, or God forbid they don't want to say the P word. They don't want to say pray. We're thinking about you. If you would have at least started with that, but you got nothing from Karen Bass. Literally for 2 minutes, she had nothing to say. She couldn't even utter a word. And then at these press conferences, they constantly are playing up all of their successes, how well they're working together and what they're doing. Meanwhile, people have nothing. I mean, I think that the beautiful part of humanity that we've seen are these first responders who have been out there not sleeping and just continually fighting these fires 12 hours on at a time. And then the outpouring of support from the community. They actually had to stop taking donations in Pasadena because so many people had brought water, they brought supplies, they brought clothing. And there's so much that they actually had too much to offer people who were in need. I mean, those are the kinds of stories that they could really be talking about instead of touting what are these phony baloney successes where we know and can see their failures. And I think that would be a good place for them to start, is to kind of look at the humanity. And they don't. They're incapable of that. Another piece of this is that people are starting to talk about repopulating and getting back into their homes, in some cases to see their losses or to comb through some of the wreckage to see if they can find anything. And in other cases to see their house survived or get back into their homes that are still standing. And as they're doing that, of course, the question is, how do we rebuild? And Gavin Newsom has come out and again, touting himself. I always laugh whenever he puts a baseball cap on, that's when he's serious disaster Gavin. And he thinks that everybody's, he's got the baseball cap on. So he means business now. And he has said that he is going to start reducing regulation because it's extremely difficult to build a home in California. If you're near the beach, you have to get the Coastal Commission to sign off, CEQA, all the environmental standards. It is incredibly difficult to get permits on new homes. And so he came out bragging that he was going to cut the permitting process only in the burn areas, not throughout the state, but only in the burn areas, to make it 120 days for you to get your first permit. Now, our friend Steve Hilton, who works for Fox News and is mulling a run for governor in California, came out and talked about how ridiculous that is. The last time California had a Republican governor, he was in office during the Northridge earthquake back in 1994. We had entire freeways that were damaged and needed to be rebuilt. And Steve jogged my memory because I was just a teenager during that time. And he reminded me that entire freeways were rebuilt in California in 81 days. And you're telling me that the best Gavin Newsom can offer on a house to begin the permitting process is 120 days just to get started? ridiculous. This is going to be a long time coming. And you're already hearing the stories about renters jacking up prices because they know that people are going to need temporary housing. Many people didn't have fire insurance because of the premium caps that drove insurance companies out of the state. I really fear for the future of our state. This is going to have a huge economic impact. They're already looking at like $150 billion in economic impact from these fires. And that's just what we know about today.
I hear you.
Pretty crazy.
Okay, on a happier note, in another part of the country,
before we get there, can I tell you that they are doing arrests for arsonists, by the way, and one of them, before we move from the fires, was out hiking with the blowtorch, because that's what you go hiking with. He has not been officially charged as we do this today, but illegal immigrant here illegally, and he's being held on a probation violation as we record this edition of our podcast. But the state is fighting ICE on the detainers for him because he is illegal and they think that he started one of the fires. Just incredible. But on to better news now.
I have to say, I've seen a couple of different clips on social media that allegedly show people starting fires, but I don't know what.
Not all are true.
It's hard to know what to believe and what's not. Okay,
this guy was tackled by citizens in the area, though, because he was out there holding a blowtorch. Now, I don't know about you, but when I go hiking, I like to lessen my load as much as possible. I don't even want to take a lipstick if I have to haul my butt up a hill, not much less, a blowtorch. So,
Well, I think you can say one of the big reasons Donald Trump got elected is because people are fed up with exactly two things, these types of failed policies and this level of arrogance from their Democratic leaders. And I think Trump would have handled it so differently had he been there on the ground. Okay, so thank goodness he is going to be our president in just a few days, and I'm so excited. So Washington is gearing up for the inauguration. It is going to be wickedly cold, which is kind of miserable, but it is what it is. We'll be warm on the inside, right?
That's it. You're going to be glowing. Don't even worry. You'll be so happy. You'll be glowing.
And I love all the celebrating that I see.
Yeah.
So not only do you have I can't even count. There's probably 15 different balls going on in Washington. So there's 3 official inaugural balls on the Monday night, and President and Mrs. Trump, but is that how we call her? The president and Mrs. Yes, Trump and Melania,
that's what we call her. Yeah,
we'll go to 3 different balls, but there are so many that go on. Probably starting Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, and even Monday night. There will be plenty of private ones. So there's a lot of opportunities for people who want to come to DC and go to one of the balls. But I'm also seeing neighborhood things. I'm seeing. Yeah. I've seen lots of notifications of friends having celebration inaugural parties, gatherings at bars, which I just think there's a real spirit of celebration. You don't have to be in Washington to watch the inauguration or to celebrate the inauguration. So I've
been invited already. We've got local groups in California all the way across the country that are having inauguration viewing party breakfast, like a brunch with mimosas, like the very celebratory. And then some groups that are having balls. This is the first time that I can remember in California seeing groups in California celebrate the inauguration of a president like this.
Wow.
I think people really feel this as such a huge win. Just because of how everything rolled out. So everybody's in a celebratory mood, at least Republicans anyway.
I agree. So I had a lot of fun this last weekend because I decided I needed a new dress. And so
I was going to ask you, so let me just get it straight. So you're going to actually be at the inauguration, right?
Yeah.
And then you'll go to the parade and then you'll go to a ball. So when you go to the inauguration, because your husband's going to work in the administration, are you at where you want to be for the inauguration, or where will you be sitting?
I still think we'll need binoculars, but We'll be somewhere. I think we'll be somewhere on the inside. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But yeah, we're actually going to 3 different balls. So we're going to the Hispanic ball on Saturday night. Turns out Turning Point is doing a ball on Sunday night. And then we're going to one of the official inaugural balls on the Monday night. I will probably wear the same dress for all 3. And if anybody gives me grief about it, I'm sorry.
You know what? You're my kind of girl. Why do you need 3 different dresses? You know what? Just post all the pictures at the same time and it'll look like it was the same night and you were just party hopping. All right. So where did you go shopping? What did you find? Tell me everything.
So I went everywhere. I live near Tyson's. And so we've got all the department stores. I started at Macy's, went to Nordstrom. I had to keep kind of upping my game a little bit. I ended up at Neiman Marcus and finally found a dress that I really, really liked. But I tell you what, the funnest thing was in the dress departments of all these stores. I looked around and they were full of women and I knew they were all Republicans who were there to buy their dresses for inaugural balls. So that was really fun.
Season. So when they have formals right now, you know what they're there for. Okay. Yeah. So what did you end up with? Do we get a sneak peek? What's your color? What do we got?
Yeah, I really wanted red. And I'm sure tons of people will be in red, but I wanted red. I did not find a red dress that I loved. So I ended up with black sleeveless with I don't know even how you call it, like a diamondy sort of waist with a big sort of diamondy bow in the back. And I don't know.
Sounds
I think it's
pretty.
hard to find dresses. I mean, unless you're Twiggy, I think it's hard. We all have unique shapes, right? And it's hard to find the dresses that fit our shape, that flatter us. And
evening gowns, I think, are almost the hardest. Other than pants, other than finding a great pair of pants, I think evening gowns are they are tough. I know when we went to Mar-a-Lago, when I saw you there actually several years ago, I was looking for a great dress and I was looking all over. And I will give you one little hint, and they're expensive. It's a dress because I love a deal. I don't like to spend a lot of money on stuff, but for me, I thought they were expensive. MacDougall though does some great dresses, and they're worth it. They're worth the cost. They're well made. They fit nicely. I've gone back to them several times for occasion dresses, but yeah, it's hard. It's hard to find them.
You really don't have to spend a ton of money to get a great dress. But I will tell you this is my thing. I mean, I think it looks so amazing when women wear strapless, but I had gotten one dress like that, a strapless dress for my sister's wedding last year. And the entire evening, I felt like I looked as if I had just gotten out of the shower and I was only wearing a towel. I cannot go in public without sleeves. I felt
I'm a sleeve girl too. Yeah. I feel naked. I've always had sleeves, always. And I don't even really love short sleeves that much. So I'm like a sleeve girl, so I'm with you on that. But you want to be comfortable because you want to feel confident. You don't want to be worried about things popping or
no.
You have to have something you can move in. It's an ordeal to find something great.
And so here's what I think is going to be really fun. So we've got all these different things going on. We've got the inauguration itself on Monday. It will be bitter, freezing cold. I can't wait to see what Melania wears. She was so stunning in that baby blue suit.
I still think about that. It was gorgeous.
She was incredible. But then what's really interesting, I was reading through his schedule. He does go to the White House right away. He will sign a slew of executive orders on day one before the parade. So I'm telling you, I think our world is going to change so fast. It's going to be really heartening, really, really
Okay,
exciting.
You want to play a game?
Yes.
So let's pick the number because I agree with you. We actually, in our previous episode, talked to the politics reporter, Wendell Husbo from Breitbart, who said, probably Tuesday, but I think the executive orders are coming Monday, just like you, because he promised them he's going to deliver. There's no way. So let's pick right now. How many do you think we're going to get on day one?
I don't want to be overly ambitious. I mean, part of me wants to say 25. Part of me wants to say
God,
100.
I was saying 24. That's exactly what I had in
No
mind.
way. Really? But I also wouldn't be surprised if he did 100. I mean,
I know. Well, it's funny. You and I are both lined up. So let's just say we both think 25, and you can tell us what you think too in the comments, the podcast. Let's all go. It's like guessing how many M&Ms in the jar when you go to a baby shower. But it could be, you're right. It could be 100, it could be 10, or it could be something in between. We just don't know.
Yeah.
I'm excited though. And I can't wait. So the next time we talk will be after the inauguration. So
we will have a new president.
We will have a new president, and I want you to remember everything. I want you to take as many pictures as you can. Okay. And then I think in our next episode, we'll just have to go through the inauguration, an insider's view from those eyeballs of Katie Gorka. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd love to. I'll try to do some video clips as well. And I have to say, I am optimistic that I think things will be safe and calm. I think everybody in Washington, I think is going to be taking things much more seriously. So I don't think you're going to see the kinds of destruction you saw after his first inauguration. Sebastian and I walked right through that, and it was not nice. I mean, it was scary. And it was destructive. So I also think
more people are happy he's there than there were the last time. I really do. Yeah. I mean, I just feel like it's a change. I think people know, even if they don't like him, they know he's not going to be the end of the world. And I don't know. It made me laugh watching these hearings and listening to some of the senators. I think it was Senator Slotkin, who's new. She came from the House of Representatives with Pete Hegseth on this last Tuesday. And she was saying, well, when President Trump orders you to use the troops for unethical means or illegal means, there are still a few people who are saying that. But I really believe the bulk of the population know that is just rhetoric. That is just ridiculousness. So we'll see, but I do hope for a really safe and happy inauguration day, and you be safe and keep your eyes open. And I can't wait to see everything that you get and you come back and bring back. You're on a reconnaissance mission. So you've got your orders now. You'll come back to Happy Women with all the good, juicy details.
I will do it.
Make sure you get her book. In the meantime, Katie Gorka's got a book out. It's called Next Gen Marxism, which you can find wherever you get your books, or always at katiegorka.org. You can also search her out on Facebook. Just search for Catherine Gorka, or on Twitter, Gorka Katie. You can find me on social media. Please do, at Jennifer Horn Radio, Facebook and Instagram, and on X and on Truth at Jennifer Horn. You can connect with us on a multitude of platforms. We've got video, we've got audio, pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts, and you can get all of the connections at SalemPodcastNetwork.com. Just look for Happy Women and keep those 5-star reviews coming. Share Happy Women with your friends. It means the world to us, and it really, really does help spread the word about the Happy Women podcast. Thanks for joining us. It is another episode of the Happy Women podcast.